Hi, I'm Jenny from Jennifree Designs, here in my garden on the edge of Sydney. Now, I like to freeform crochet, something like this random lace top. People often say to me, gosh, that looks really hard, that looks really complicated, but really it doesn't have to be. I've made this top with just single crochets and chains, and I'm going to show you how I did it. Now, just a few things to start off with. I've made this quite large, you'll see, and obviously this very open style of random lace is very drapey, so it's very flexible. But just to make sure that you get the right measurements, take your chest measurement and add 10%. For instance, if your chest measurement is 100 centimeters, add on 10% to make 110 centimeters, half that, 55 centimeters, and that's how wide your piece needs to be to give a good fit with a bit of drape. You can go much bigger than that, but that's what you'll need for a loose fit top. Okay, so the structure that I've done is to do two pieces, a front piece and a back piece, and stitch them together at the shoulder and a little bit down the sides. I've left them a little bit open so that you can do what you like. This whole series is going to be about freeform, which means it's really up to you how to do it. I'm just really giving you a bit of guidance. So I'm going to put this top up for sale on my Etsy site, so go and check that out along with what else I've got. But the main thing here is for you to have a go at doing it yourself. So stay tuned and I'll join you in a moment to show just how I did it. Right, now we can get started. These are the yarns that I've chosen for this top. I always like to choose a variation in colour, texture and weight to give a very interesting texture to the top. That's particularly important when we're doing a simple top with only basic stitches, which, as I said at the beginning, we're just going to be using single crochet. That's in the American terminology, or double crochet for Australian and UK viewers, and chains to make the top that I've just shown you. So what we've got here is a selection of yarns. We have this interesting fluffy yarn, which has little period stretches of fluff, which I think will make quite interesting features. Some nice, simple, greeny grey yarn. Some thicker brown yarn. This one's quite thin, some nice wool, which will give some thin areas of highlight. This golden one, again, has some quite interesting stretches with some fluffy bits and general fluff along there. And this one is quite a knobbly boucle kind of yarn. I always like to rummage into the ball when you've got a variegated yarn just to see what kind of colours you're going to hit later on. So we're picking up this colour with these two yarns, but there's also quite a lot of blue and grey in there, which will tone quite nicely with these and also with this one. So to get started, I'm using this crochet hook, which is about, I think, 2 centimeters. As a guide, I say it's about the size of my thumb, so you can really get an idea that this is a really big hook and will give nice open stitches, especially on the thinner yarns, and will allow us to still be able to work with the thicker, heavier yarns without making too dense of a fabric. So what we're going to do is to start off making some patchwork into a generally rectangular shape, but probably with a few uneven patches at the bottom. But this is entirely up to you. It's a freeform top and it's only limited by your imagination. So I think I'm going to take this green one to start with, just because it's a nice simple one. I'll move these ones over to the side for now, and you should be able to clearly see what I'm doing. So I'm going to unroll a nice stretch of yarn here. Find the end. Now you may want to leave your ends trailing for an extra feature, or you may want to sew them in. But anyway, I'm just going to leave about a 6-inch piece to start and tie a simple thumb knot to start however you like. So what we're going to do is just start off with some chains. So, and you'll see here that as I do these, I'm not pulling them up tight at all. They're really loose and open, and that's what gives us the really nice open texture to this top. So I'm going to do about that many. Then we're going to turn and come back along those chains doing single crochet. So just going to single crochet into each of these chains back along to the end. So remember, what I'm showing you here is very much a guide. This is just how to generally approach something like this, and it's not, you don't have to follow exactly what I do at all. So let's get a bit more yarn happening here. So we're just single crocheting in each chain along to the end. Right, so we have here a simple first row of single crochet. Now I'm going to do a chain and turn. So I'm going to do a single crochet in first stitch, another in the second stitch. Then I'm going to make a chain loop, which creates a nice big open area. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Myself a bit more yarn. Right. And then the thing to create a loop, you need to have more stitches in your loop than you skip along the bottom. So I've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chains in my loop. I'm going to just skip 3 stitches on the bottom and then single crochet into this 4th stitch here. Like that, and then single crochet to the end. Where are we here? There we go. So let's have a look what we've got here. We now have our work, and we have the chain loop that we made here. So as we then work back around that, we'll start to create some unevenness in this patchwork. So I'm now going to chain and turn around. And in fact, I'm going to do, I've got 1, 2 chain here. I'm going to do 4 more chain before I double crochet into one of these loops. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4 there. And then I'm just going to double crochet into, sorry, single crochet into the first chain of this loop. And then around to the in every stitch around to the end of that loop. And then I'm just going to single crochet into that then that single crochet there, but I'm not going to go all the way to the end because I want to get more an uneven edge here. So I'm going to turn, so I'm going to do a chain and turn around. Now I'm just going to get myself a bit more yarn. Right, so I'm then going to single crochet in a few stitches here. Now the thing with a loop is if you want to stretch it out, it's always good to stretch, kind of get it stretching from the middle. So what I'm going to do is to go up to the middle of the loop and then make another loop around here. So I'm going up to the height of the loop here, which is the high point, and then I'm going to do, I've got 3 stitches there, for I'm going to do a 6 chain loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm going to single crochet in about, so you can just kind of estimate this as you go along, into that second chain of that loop, and then around to the end of this loop here. Again, I'm not pulling any of these stitches up tight. It's really loose, and that's what gives this lovely open effect. Okay, now you can see here we've got a sort of a squarish edge here. What I'm going to do is make another loop that goes around here and then fasten off. So I'm going to do about 1, 2, 3, 4 chains is probably about right, and then just I'm going to slip stitch, so that's just through and through and a chain and to fasten off. So I'm going to cut that off again, about a 6 to 8 inch tail, and then just pull that through and pull it up nice and firm. So you can see here, this is the shape we've got so far. So let me get this one out of the way. So now what I like to do is to juxtapose different colours and textures to make a nice contrasting patchwork effect. However, you could make more of a gradient effect across your work if you prefer. So I think I'm going to now come to this one, which has some quite interesting colour combinations. So let's just unwind a bit of this and get ready to go. So we don't have to join it on, so again, make a thumb knot or join however you like. Now we don't have to start from where we finished off. We can join this in anywhere we like. In fact, I'm going to start it just over here. So I'm just going to start that with a single crochet there, and then I'm going to single crochet around this loop. See here. Sometimes it can be a little bit snug. You just got to ease it through a bit and just try and make sure you're keeping it nice and loose. It can look quite untidy as you're going along, but you'll see as you get some weight on it, as the work increases in size, that really stretches out the pattern and lets you get a really nice effect. You might notice I hold my crochet hook with this overhand hold, which I think a lot of people found rather ungainly, but still that's the way I always do it, and that works for me. So you hold your hook exactly how you like, how you feel most comfortable and what works for you. Okay, so I might just come around to here, and then I'm going to turn and go back the other way. There we go, so that's my ends. I'm just going to make this area a little more solid in this, so I'm just going to single crochet all the way back again, so no loops for the moment. That's the thing, each you can have areas of openness, areas where it's a little more dense, and you create variation that way. So however you want to do it, or you can make it all very open and loopy. It's entirely down to you. And the thing with this is to just try things. Just see what you want to do, and you can lay your work out and see how you're progressing. Here we go. So I'm going to then come back here and then come around this way a bit, because we want our work to kind of weave and meander into very irregular patchwork. At least I do. Oh, we're starting to move into this, the bluey turquoise colours here, which is rather pretty. Okay, so let's just keep working up here. I think now I'm going to create another loop, maybe just a small one, a 4-chain loop. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I think I'll just skip these 2 and come into this, which is quite good because it's in the middle of this previous loop as well. There we go. Oopsie. You can see that. So then I'll just continue to work around here. So this is quite nice with the variegation in this ball. It's creating a colour contrast in the same texture, so that's rather nice. A bit more of this. So I'm going to come around to the end of this bit here. Oopsie, let's go through that. That's it. And then I'm going to do some chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that will take me down here. So I'm going to take that down to where this loop joins in there, because that's a good solid base for it to attach. And you can already see we're getting some nice patterns happening here. We've got some nice open loops, some nice interesting textures and color change happening here, and then I'm going to single crochet around this chain loop here. These big crochet hooks can take a little bit of getting used to, because they're, especially if you're used to working with the smaller ones, so they are a bit slower, but because they're so big, you make quite fast progress with your work, so that is quite satisfying. Okay, so I've come around to the beginning of this work, so this has changed here, and because of this color, it's actually joining up across the 2 color schemes here. So I'm now going to chain and turn and come back up the work. Just going to do all single crochets up here. So here we've got similar colors happening, but very different texture. I think that makes it quite interesting, but it's whatever you like in your work, that's what you should do. Some people like contrast, some people like tones, some people like tones with a single contrast, just depends. This free form is obviously very open and lacy. Other forms of free form that you've probably come across make much denser fabrics, and beautiful work by Prudence Mapstone you've probably seen uses some often quite complicated stitches to make some very dense, beautiful work. And I think this is a good place to start. The other thing I like to be able to do is to just keep working on my work rather than creating lots of little pieces which you then need to put together. I like to just continue to work in one piece. I think it feels easier to me, and I like doing the crochet part, so that's what's good. Okay, so I'm coming across here. I'm going to go around this loop, and then I think I'll fasten this bit off. But you can obviously make your patches bigger or smaller depending what you like. So, oopsie, helps if I go into the stitch. There we go. I mean, you don't have to go into the stitches in chain loops. You can work into the open space if you like, but I just find this gives you more opportunities for the lacy effect. But again, entirely up to you. Okay, coming around here. And so this is where we are now. So right here, I'm going to fasten off. Right, here we go. Pull it up nice and snug. Right, so we've now done 2 lots of yarn. So I'm quite interested to try out this really fluffy one. So I'm going to try and work this fluffy one around this area. So sometimes, not that there's actually a right side and a wrong side in this thing, but often when I find yarn with really sort of thick, heavy, fluffy bits, I often find it's easier to work, if you do have a wrong side, to work on the wrong side, because as you drag your stitch through, the fluff tends to stay on the back side. So if you're working on the wrong side, that gives you fluff on the right side. Okay, so we make a loop. So I hope it's not going to be too hard to see what I'm doing with this. Let's see how we go. Right, so I think I might just start up here and then work my way around. So let's just see. Right. Oh, and through there. So you can see that these what do we call them? Little bushy bits. Oops, hang on. We can then come over this end if we want to work it in. Like this. And so we're going down the side of rows. Just, it doesn't really matter where you dive into. Just dive in anywhere that seems to make sense. It's in about the right place. Right, this is going to be quite interesting, I think. Quite so easy to see where I'm going for you, but let's just see how it works. I'm just working around in the single crochet just to see what's going to happen. So this is what we've got so far. If we look on the other side, you can actually see these little fluffy areas are more distinct and clearer on the other side than they are on this side. So I think we'll be able to I'm going to call this side the back and the other side the front, so that will bear that in mind as you go along. If you're working with this particular yarn again, we'll know which way to do it. Okay, but we will be going backwards and forwards, so it's probably not going to make too much difference, but maybe not. Maybe we'll just go around and make a sort of a weavy line of this stuff. That could work quite nicely. So I'm now going to then work along the bottom here. So we're just about back to the beginning, the first chain that we did here, the starting point. So I'm going to go into that. And we're just going to turn around. I'll put 2 into that stitch because we're turning quite a sharp corner there. So I'll just put 2 stitches into that stitch as we go around the corner so it's not pulling. And then just go back in this first row of chain. Often it's one ball of yarn that you see that you base the rest of the colours of a piece on, and that's kind of how it will see. That's a tail that I'm working in, so we just got to go into here. This is the yarn that really spoke to me with the colours to choose for this piece. So it's quite interesting just to see. So I think we're just weaving around here. See how this goes. come down to the end. If we like, we could go all the way around and make a sort of a circle if we want. How will that look? Let's just have a look. What do we think? That might be quite nice to have a little bit of a feature, like a little lagoon with reeds. Let's have a look. Let's just keep going. Okay, so we've got to the end there. We'll now just come into here. And yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Go all the way around. Just work this out. So if you've got an end bit, you just need to flatten that out so you can, let's get rid of that bit, push that over there. You can thread that through later. And then we'll just dive in here somewhere. A single crochet. And just keep coming around. And this is where the free form and the creativity comes in as you go. You get ideas as you go as to what looks good, what's going to work. And I think, may not, but we'll see how we go. I think this kind of circle of this fluffy stuff is going to look quite interesting. And again, as you've seen, all we're doing here is working with single crochets and chains. So you can get quite creative with very simple stitches. Working our way just around the edge of the whole piece. The other thing, when you're working with this big hook and very loose and open stitches, you've got quite a lot of leeway in how many stitches need to go in each stitch, because as you stretch the piece in different directions, as it will be when it's weighted and stretched out for some side seams, the stitches can kind of stretch and give. So you've got a bit of leeway as opposed to if you're working on a strictly square blanket or something. Okay, so we've come back to the beginning. So I'm just going to join with a slip stitch here. Oopsie. Okay, there we go. And fasten that off. This is quite interesting yarn that could make just nice to leave the ends dangling as well. Okay, so this is what we've got now. Get our trailing ends out of the way. I think you can get a fairly good idea what we've created so far, which I think is looking rather good. So the tricky thing here is going to be able to see the stitches as we go around the next area. So let's get rid of this one. Okay, now what to try next? So this is all fairly complicated texture with this yarn, so I think I'm going to go something a bit simpler. This one is quite a nice colour match with some of these colours in this fluffy yarn, so I think I'm going to go with that one next. So let's just get this out, and I think what I might do is just put a bit in here. So again, thumb knot, put your hook in, pull it up, and I think now, so I'm just going to find a nice stitch up here. There we go. And I'll dive into here. All right. Yes, it's a bit tricky to see where I'm going, but if you actually tip it over to the back, it's not so bad, and just dive in. So as long as you're basically in the right kind of thing and you're not stretching up too much, you'll be right. Okay, And now, so this is just on a very little stitch here, so here we go. Get those two pieces there. And oops, I think I've gone in. See, it can be, oh, that's the tail. That's right, we'll get that out the way. Let's just go into here. Oh, let's go into there. There we go. That's a bit better. And I think what I'm going to do now is make a chain loop to come over here. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to join that in about here. And carry on doing some more single crochets along a bit. So any inaccuracies you've got here with where you put your hook, it's all going to be hidden by this fluff. So if you're finding it hard to see where the stitches are, it's going to be hard for anybody else to see if you've not gone into it whatever properly is. Just dive in wherever you think is going to work. There we go. Right, so I'm going to chain and then I'm going to turn around, myself some more yarn, and then just come back doing some single crochets, start to define this patch a bit. I think I pretty much go straight back along here with the single crochets and around this chain loop. Let's get that into there. Put it in there. Right, then coming along back towards the beginning, but maybe not quite all the way. So I might just turn here so we don't have too sharp of an edge, and single crochet back along around the loop. Down here, and then I think I'm going to do another loop. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can make these as big as you like. I'm just showing you here. So I've done 5 in my thing, so I'm going to skip 1, 2, 3 and go into number 4 with a single crochet here, and again not going right to the end. A chain and a turn. Just come back along around this loop that I just did. Let's get this so there we go. Coming back along here. Going into chains is always the trickiest. Right. Then I'm going to come along just along to about the middle of this loop here, and then I'm just going to fasten off. There we go. and pull that through nice and snugly. So let's lay this out and see where we are so far. So this is what we've got. Actually, that's the better side with the fluff. So you can see here that we've got some really nice contrasts of colour and texture. I'm really liking this fluffy loop here, this fluffy circle. So I'm going to stop here for now. I'm going to come back next time and you will have seen how I've progressed. If you want to do something like this yourself, you've got the idea now of how to build up a piece like this. So you can see as we're creating it, you can just add on pieces around in the spaces to build up the shape you want. Now as you hold it up, you'll see that it, especially as it gets heavier, how it drapes in different directions as well. So as it gets bigger, hold it up and you'll be able to see what kind of shape is going to work best at the top or the bottom, which direction to build it up in. Okay, so that's all for today. I'll come back next time when I've progressed this a bit further and we can take it from there. See you next time.